Friends and family, welcome to another uncomfortable conversation with a married woman. In this conversation, we're going to ask ourselves the question, is it time for a divorce? If you're interested, go ahead, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's talk. So if you've been married for a while, inevitably, there comes a time when you ask yourself that question. I'm going to be honest with you. I told you this is a free space. To me, it's a safe space. I share my thoughts, my feelings, and everything. I hope you do the same. But it's important to have that discussion. I think a lot of times when people find themselves in certain situations in marriages, they think they're alone. They think they are the only people going through it because everybody's like, hee, ka, 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 ha, 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 in their marriages. And so they think, everybody's happy in their marriage except me. No, you're not alone. I've told you guys, marriage is a journey, right? It is not a destination. And in a journey, when you're driving somewhere, you go hills and valleys. Sometimes it's all straight plain and then hills and valleys. You know what I mean? That is what's normal. So inevitably, there'll come a rough patch or 2 or 3 or 12 where you have to ask yourself, is it time to just move on? Now, from my perspective, when that time comes, there are certain questions you have to ask yourself. If you have children together, what's going to happen with the children? You have to think about that. That's number one. Number two, you have property together. I don't know how long you've been married. There are certain laws in place that you have to abide by. If you've been married for a certain number of years, regardless of what you came in with or didn't come in with, everything is split down the middle. For some people, that's a yay. For some people, that's like, what? And then number 3, did you try everything you possibly could to make it work before calling it quits? So let's go through this one at a time. Let's start with the children. If you have children together, one of the things that you have to think about is if you get a divorce and there is no infidelity involved or something dire or abuse or whatever it is, what happens is that the courts will make the children share equal amount of time with each spouse if you get a divorce, which means if the children are in a certain school, you're going to have to live in the same neighborhood so the children's lives are not disrupted and they continue to go to the same school, because they can't come to your place and go to one school and then when they come to the spouse's place, go to a different school. That just doesn't happen. If you don't have children, that is not complicated then when it comes to that part. But you do have to think about whether there is infidelity, who's going to be paying who alimony, who makes more money than who. Because people usually assume that the man is going to have to be paying alimony to the woman. It doesn't always go that way. It doesn't. So you have to do your research before you come to the point to say, yeah, it's time for a divorce. Don't let it come out of your mouth until you've done your research. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't even let it in. Keep it in. And do your research and know what you're in for before you do that. Also remember that if you do decide, especially when there are children involved, and you start to lead different lives where the woman has their own boyfriend now and the husband has their own girlfriend now, the children now have to deal with those situations. I have had several stepmothers and one stepfather. Let me tell you, it wreaks havoc on a child. I can't tell you enough. So you have to think about, is it worth your child going through that for your emotional comfort or not? Again, if it's an abusive situation, that's a whole different ballgame. Here in the United States, or at least in the area that I am in, the community is zoned for certain schools. So you don't, unless you're going to private school, you don't just take your child to any public school you feel like. Usually it is this community, the children go to these elementary, middle school, and high school, that kind of thing. So you have to think about that. When it comes to the property, who gets what? Are you going to sell everything and then divide up the money and then everybody figures out what they're going to do, where they're going to stay? It's easier said than done. I can tell you this. There are certain things that folks don't think about. If there's cheaterization involved in the determination of this divorce, whoever is saying that cheaterization happened has to prove. It is not just text messages, I can tell you that. It's not just emails, I can tell you that. They want pictures. So you would have had to have a private investigator or something paid them to actually get concrete evidence that unequivocally shows cheaterization. One of the things they're going to ask you if you get a lawyer or whatever it is what have you tried to do in order to reconcile your differences? Be ready to answer that. I would always say there's no situation that I think is unresolvable if both parties are committed. But both parties have to be committed. If only one person wants the marriage to work, ain't gonna happen. You're not. So you both have to be committed to make it work. Truly, truly committed to put in the hard work. Which means then you'd be seeking counseling, therapy, whatever is needed. Remember, each of you came into the marriage with baggage. I keep saying this. You came into the marriage with baggage. Baggage means you have certain expectations because you saw certain things, growing up, and you've experienced certain things in your life. So you have a certain perception of what marriage should be. And once you're in it, sometimes you realize it ain't what you thought it was going to be. From my perspective, my mother and father, I said it in previous videos, I was born into the divorce. They were already apart when I was born. So I never knew them together. So I've never known my two parents living under the same roof taking care of me. But what that did to me could have been so detrimental to my life, to my future, if it wasn't for God. God orchestrated certain people to be in my life, and the people that I lived with and the things that I learned from them, and a grandmother who was rooted in the word and covered me in prayer, and an auntie, several aunties actually, who loved on me and tried to fill the void that I felt within my soul. If I hadn't had those situations and those people, drug addict, prostitute, baby mama, I'm just saying. And nobody would have faulted me for it. Nobody. Because I watched Oprah and I watched Jerry Springer, and I know these things. But what I'm saying in this is that, so when you have children, right, and you're considering these things and you're going through your therapy, hopefully, and all of that, you have to consider the effect on the children. One of the reasons why I didn't want to have children when I was married, because I knew I'd have to die to myself when children are involved. It's not about me anymore when children are involved. It's not about me. It's not about what I feel like. It's not what I want. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to die to myself. I didn't want to be in that position where that self-sacrifice was like that. The reason why was because I didn't want my children to go through what I went through. I would die first. That was just me. I did not want my children to go through that ever. No child should have to go through the repercussions of the mistakes of a parent. It's abominable to me. That's why I'm telling you, if you choose to get married, before you choose to get married, think about it. Be very, very careful in the decisions that you make. Because eventually, possibly, another life will come into that situation. And everything you do will affect that life. And you'll be responsible to answer to God for that life. And what you did to contribute positively or negatively to that life. So you have to be very, very cognizant if you are thinking about, is it time for a divorce? On the other hand, a child watching a parent suffer through a marriage because of them, I can't tell you. I don't know. It's almost like a lose-lose situation. So listen, before you decide whether it's time for a divorce, please consider all these things. I have said in my previous video, and I'll say it again. If it is an abuse situation, listen, get the hell out. That's all I got to say about that. And again, there are warning signs. Abuse doesn't suddenly happen. It's usually incremental. Usually. And it grows and it grows and it grows. And it culminates in something that we call abuse. So when you're talking about a divorce, consider these three things. Think very carefully about them. The grass is not greener on the other side. I can tell you that because I have seen children in a divorced marriage situation that are struggling so much. And I've seen children living in a marriage where it's done and they're going through so much. So I don't know. You have to look at your situation and think for yourself and do what is best for you and your children, if you have children. You really, really have to think through it. It should not be an emotional decision. That's one thing I have to leave you with. It can't be emotional. It has to be factual and very logical. Very, very logical. Write your pros and your cons. Being divorced and being married, pros and cons, and weigh them. And if you can find books to read and do some research and everything, do it. Nobody comes out winning in a divorce. Nobody does. And in a miserable marriage, it's the same. Nobody wins. So once you're married, and if you haven't sought counseling or therapy, do that before you decide to get divorced. Again, outside of abusive relationships, you have to make sure that you do everything so that when you decide to throw in the towel, you're not looking back because you know you've done everything that you can. Okay. Hey, have you subscribed? Click on the button and subscribe. Why are you doing me like that? Just subscribe. And then hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post the next discussions. Make sure to comment below because I want to know your thoughts on this. I know people who are very, very happily divorced out there. And I know people who are like, I shouldn't have. So let me know what your thoughts are. And remember, in order to have a good marriage, a happy marriage, a content marriage, a successful marriage, a thriving marriage, be kind to yourself and your spouse, and be respectful to yourself and to your spouse. Okay? If you want to send me any emails, you want to talk about certain things you can't put in the comments below, my email is there. You can send me a direct message in Instagram. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. So you have all the links over there. So you can contact me in any of those ways, okay? Until next time, have a blessed week.